what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight is going to be TV show content. For today's video, we are going to tier rank every single TV show I watched in the year 2023. I recently made my video for the 2022 shows. Now I want to go over all 21 shows I watched in 2023, which is a lot. Typically, I had a lot of free time at one point, and then with the current job I have now, I have more free time than I did with the previous job. So that's why I'm just consuming more media, because that is my hobby, watching movies, shows, and reading. Like, these are my hobbies, and now I have more time to participate. So, without further ado, let's just jump right into the video. Alright, so similar to the 2022 video, I just have 5 tier rankings, unlike, you know, the movie video where I had a bajillion. Every single one has the same title as the 2022 video, except for the last one, just because I thought the current one I have now would be funnier. But if you didn't watch that video, I'll go over them anyway. For the first one, we have And the Emmy Goes To. This is just basically my 5 out of 5 shows, my top favorites of the year. And then we have And the Nominees Are, which is like the 4 out of 5 shows. In the middle, we have Background Noise. These are like my 3 out of 5 star shows, like the shows I thought were just okay. Next, we have Something That Exists. These are the shows that I would have ranked like 2 out of 5. Like, I didn't hate them. I didn't particularly like them either, but I did sit there and continue the show. And for the last one, we have My Eyes. These are basically the 1 out of 5 star shows, the shows that absolutely should have been canceled in my personal opinion. This is also a reference to something, and you have to say it like that. Oh, my eyes! My eyes! Alright, like I said, 21 shows, let's just jump right into it. First up, we have an anime called Tokyo Ghoul Re. This is seasons 3 and 4 of Tokyo Ghoul. I have spoken about this series like ad nauseum at this point on this channel because I absolutely adored the manga. If you watch the 2022 video though, you'll see that I was not a fan of the anime. I just did not like a lot of the changes they made. And honestly, Tokyo Ghoul Re, my eyes, it should not have been made. See, my problems with 3 and 4 is that, yes, I appreciate they went back to the manga, because like I said, season 2 they went off the manga. However, the beginning of season 3, and because I was like reading reviews from multiple people online, the beginning of season 3 understandably left a lot of anime-onlys very confused, and a lot of people were accusing the author of the manga of like bad writing, like you don't know how to write a story, this is so random. But season 3 would have made so much more sense if the anime had stuck to the manga. It's perfectly explained in like the season 2 portion of the manga. And then so when season 3 happens in the manga, like, you know very much where you're at. And I feel like it made the beginning of this arc even more confusing, not only in the obvious sense, but just with all these character introductions, because that was also confusing for me in the manga. Tokyo Ghoul Re introduces a lot more people, and the anime, just because of its short run time, because they're trying to squish like 140 chapters into 24 episodes, but it introduces so many people. It's overwhelming. You don't know who to pay attention to. My biggest complaint with this though is that, yes, this anime kept like the big important details, like the big important plot points. However, they skipped out on a lot of the things that happened in between. So these big plot points weren't making sense. They didn't make sense. I knew what was happening simply because I had read the manga. I feel like if I hadn't read it before, then I would have been very confused. And it made character development lack. In the Tokyo Ghoul manga, it's those small moments where most of the development actually happens. And the characters take what they learn from those moments and do the things they do in the major plot points. There's just so many cool things they skipped out on from the manga, and I said this in the last video too, the art style is not up to par for what I want. I understand that Sugi Ishida's art style would be hard to adapt, but I feel like a proper studio, that's kind of insulting to the studio because Pierrot is a proper studio, but I feel like another studio could have done it. The only 2 things I really liked about this were, one, the OST. It was nice to see some of my favorite characters again, but at the same time, they didn't feel like the characters I fell in love with. So this was very disappointing. I was warned by multiple people the anime is kind of in shambles should have heeded their warnings, but at the same time, I had to see it for myself. Next, I continued my Star Wars journey because I am trying to watch all the Star Wars content currently on Disney Plus and just in general. I watched the animated TV show that came out in the early 80s called Droids. This is just R2-D2 and C-3PO, whatever his name is, going on adventures. This is just something that exists. Definitely not my favorite Star Wars content. I got very bored quite often, actually. It is a very episodic show, but like sometimes some episodes like overlap with each other. There's only one arc I can remember, otherwise the show itself is very forgettable. And I was often just doing something. So like, yes, it's technically background noise, but like, again, background noise, that's more of a 3 out of 5 star show. This is kind of like 2 out of 5. I watched the Book of Boba Fett, which is the story of, you know, Boba Fett. I wasn't planning on watching the show, but, you know, again, I'm doing the Star Wars journey. But then also, you can't understand, because I love Mandalorian and I wanted to see season 3, but you can't understand season 3 without seeing Book of Boba Fett because they they completed, I should say, Grogu's and Din Djarin's character arcs, that whole story, they completed that in the Book of Boba Fett, which made the beginning of season 3 Mandalorian kind of confusing if you had not seen it. I don't know whose decision that was. I think that's the stupidest decision. But it is what it is, though. I just took it. I watched the show. A lot of people warned me the Book of Boba Fett was bad. I kind of liked it for what it was. It's not great. It's background noise. I'm probably at like the bottom end of background noise. I fairly enjoyed what I was seeing, and I did like the stuff where they bring back Grogu and Din Djarin. That was my favorite part. So I guess technically I didn't really watch this for Boba Fett. I watched this for The Mandalorian. But overall, it was fine. I won't be rewatching it anytime soon, but like I don't regret my experience. That being said, we have season 3 of The Mandalorian. This season more so, I'm just gonna put this in background noise. This season more so focuses on Bo-Katan Kryze, and I actually had a lot of fun with this season. There were a few episodes here and there that were kind of boring, but like overall, I didn't hate it. I remember when the season ended, and I went on Twitter and people were angry. They were so angry with how this season turned out, and I had fun. I thought it was goofy, and like, I mean, let's be serious. Star Wars has been so unserious since like the original trilogy came out. It was always like a campy space opera, and those are the vibes I got from season 3. So I had fun with season 3. It's not the top show I watched in 2023, but I don't hate it. I'm actually really excited for season 4. And I learned to love Bo-Katan Kryze. I didn't really have an opinion on her when she was first introduced in this show. And like, mind you, at this point I haven't seen Clone Wars and all that because I believe she was introduced in other stuff. So Mandalorian was my introduction to her. At first I was indifferent, but it was this season that she really grew on me, and I really want her and Din Djarin to kiss. That's just shipping nonsense, and if it never happens, it never happens, whatever. But like deep down in my core, I want it to happen. So after The Mandalorian, a lot of stuff was going on in my life, a lot of like traumatic stuff, and it was like one event after another. People say this shit happens in threes, and let me tell you, it was 3 major things in my life happened, and I just felt like I couldn't take it. I needed to watch a comfort show. So I decided to rewatch Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you've been on this channel, you know how much I love this show. It is my favorite show of all time. It has been my favorite show since I was like 12, 13 years old, and it never left that atmosphere. If you don't know what this show is about, this show takes place in a universe where people can manipulate the 4 elements, so air, water, earth, and fire, and one person can manipulate all 4 at a time, and they are the Avatar. In the timeline we are at, the air nomads have been killed off by the Fire Nation because the Fire Nation declared war on everyone. They're trying to take over, so then the last airbender, who is the Avatar, has to come to terms with that and defeat the Fire Nation. This show is near and dear to my heart. The older I get, the more emotional I get, and I could talk about this show forever. So I rewatched it in 2020, and I talked about it in that video as well. I'm just gonna link that video up above if I remember to, because I talk about the show for a solid 10 minutes in that video, and I don't really want to repeat myself just because I can talk about this show forever. The character development, the hints of foreshadowing, like The music, to this day, I still can't believe, because of all these things and just how cinematic it is, to this day I can't believe it's just a Nickelodeon show. You know, watching this at 25, 26 years old, I still laugh my ass off. I still cry. I still catch new things every time. I'm still blown away every time I catch on to a hint of foreshadowing, knowing what's coming. I'm still blown away by the ending. The last Agni Kai is still my favorite scene in all of animation to this day. The music for that scene made my top 5 songs on Spotify. Azula is still one of my favorite characters of all time. She has been my favorite character of the show since I was 12. And I still, as evil as she is, I still hold her near and dear to my heart. I think Zuko, to this day, still has the best redemption arc I've ever seen in media. All of these characters I hold near and dear to my heart. And even Azula, despite being like one of the villains of the show. Every single character in this show is my child. They're my children. I just love the show so much, and I really needed it during that time of my life where just so many things were happening and I needed to find comfort and familiarity somewhere. This show is like one big hug, and I really needed it. And let me tell you, I cried so hard during the finale. I cried more during this rewatch than ever before. I was gonna say I don't know what was going on. I do know what was going on, but like maybe it was because I was so overwhelmed and that's why I was crying so easily. Like Leaves from the Vine took me out. I even cried for Azula. I've never, as much as I'm like team Azula redemption arc, I'm on the redemption arc team for her, but I still never cried before until this rewatch. That was really weird. But I sobbed for like a solid 10 minutes after I watched the series finale. This show told me everything is going to be okay. And look where I'm at now. It is okay. I'm in a brand new city. I'm finding new things that I enjoy. I'm trying to like reinvent myself in bits and pieces here and there. Everything is okay. And the live action's coming out this month. I'm worried about it, but that's a different conversation for a different video. All that to say, here I am. I said I didn't want to repeat myself, and here I am talking for like 20 minutes about this show, just like in the last video. I love the show so much though, and I can gush about it forever, but please, if you haven't seen this, please watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, because it's so timeless. It aged so well, and I'm actually happy they're expanding the universe. But then I watched another Star Wars show called Ewoks. So this cartoon takes place on the planet Endor, which is where our characters went in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and you know, they were fighting alongside the Ewoks. I remember watching this as a kid, and for the longest time I thought it was a fever dream until I saw it on Disney+. I really enjoyed the first season. I had a lot of fun with it, just thought it was really cute, and I thought it was funny. It was the second season that tanked it. The second season was boring. All the characters just didn't act like themselves. The characters from the first season were just completely forgotten about in the second season. And I looked it up because I just had to see what happened, and I guess the second season isn't necessarily supposed to be a season 2. It's supposed to be a reimagining of season 1, like a do-over. They were essentially doing the show all over again. But I just didn't like it because I'd grown to love the characters one way and then they completely changed them. Like one character I'm thinking of is Larissa. No, is that her name? I don't know. The girl with the ponytail. Just because in the first season she was so sweet, but in the second season she was kind of an asshole and very annoying. And they did it to multiple characters and I didn't like any of them in the second season. So I'm unfortunately going to put this in something that exists. But I'll put it before Droids because I did like the first season so much. Then we have Star Wars Visions Season 2. So Star Wars Visions, if you don't know, is an anthology series where different animation studios work on one episode. None of these episodes are canon to the lore, just so that these studios have more free reign. But it's basically these studios imagining their own universes and like what their characters would do in the Star Wars universe. The first season was all anime studios in Japan, whereas the second one was just animation studios across the world. So we had Mexico, we had Ireland, we had South Korea. I really enjoyed the second season. Is this a nominee or is this an Emmy? Ooh, I'm gonna give it an Emmy for now. Something I really liked about this season is that whereas the first one focused more so on Jedi, I found this season to focus more so on the Sith, whether that it was characters becoming Sith or if it was just how the Sith was fighting these people. And I loved every single episode. Some episodes I loved more than others, but I fairly enjoyed all of them, whereas the first season there were actually a couple I didn't like at all. But I didn't dislike a single episode this season. My favorite was Cartoon Saloons from Ireland. The animation style was stunning in most of these, especially the stop motion. There were like 2 to 3 episodes that were stop motion. It was all flawless. And I'm actually really upset that the episodes of Star Wars Visions aren't canon, because I thought every single episode introduced something that was so cool and could be used and expanded on. But yeah, if you're a Star Wars fan and looking for more content, highly recommend the show. Even though it's not canon, it's still some of the best Star Wars content out there. So at this point, I had moved to Philadelphia, and for some reason when I first moved here, I went on a documentary kick. So these next few shows are gonna just all be documentaries. The first one being Shiny Happy People, Duggar Family Secrets. This documentary you can find on Prime, and it's about the family from 19 Kids and Counting and how they were raised in the IBLP cult. They believe in the Quiverful movement, so basically have as many kids as God allows you, because each child is an arrow for the army of God. Really stupid shit. I have talked about this family multiple times on this channel, especially last year, because I read both Ginger and Jill's books. Jill's was a lot better, gave 4 out of 5 stars. Ginger's made my worst book of 2023. But I thought the documentary was really well done. I'll give it a nominee. It stated a lot of things that I already knew going into it, because I have a weird fascination with the Duggar family, so I know way more than I should. So I knew the majority of the things the documentary talked about. However, there were things I did like. I did like that Jill participated, that we actually got to see a Duggar child talk about the dangers of this religion. But they also brought in other people who had left IBLP, and I really liked hearing their opinions and where they're out, and how it was just interesting to see how all these people were part of something and how they came out of it in different ways. I felt like the point of the documentary was to give people hope that they can escape something like that, and I think they got their point across. Then the next documentary I watched was House of Secrets, the Burari Deaths. This documentary is about a case that happened in 2019, I believe. An entire family in India, there was like 11 to 12 people. Someone went into their house and found that all of them had killed themselves. So this documentary explores what happened and what led the family to do what they did. This documentary, I don't know what I was expecting, but it's so sad. I didn't feel any sense of contentment by the end, because not that they want you to, this documentary didn't want you to feel content. It's a disturbing case and they wanted you to be disturbed, and it worked, but I just felt so sad at the end to what happened to these people, and how, in my opinion, there was a mastermind behind all of it. I don't want to give it a nominee. I'm gonna put it at the high end of background noise, high end of 3 out of 5 stars, just because I disagree with the conclusion that this documentary came to. The documentary concluded that this was neither a mass suicide or a murder. It was like mass psychosis, basically. And while I agree with the mass psychosis part, I don't know if I can agree that it wasn't a mass murder of sorts, just because I don't want to spoil too much of the documentary, but they dive deep into how the father handled things. And just because how he handled it and how the documentary portrayed it to be too, to me this still feels like a murder. It feels like a murder-suicide. Like everyone else was murdered while he committed suicide. I understand why the documentary came to that conclusion, that it was neither this or that, just because, again, the mass psychosis thing. And they believe everyone in the family did this ritual, not realizing they were going to kill themselves. Everyone thought they were going to survive it. So I understand why they came to the conclusion. I feel like, me personally, I have a hard time accepting that, because even if the mastermind was out of his wits, this is still a crime. And if they weren't all dead, if he was put on trial, I feel like it still would have been considered a crime of sorts. But despite my disagreements with the narrative, I think it still did a good dive delving deep into what happened, and it was respectful about the event too. The next documentary is Keep Sweet, Pray, and Obey. This is about the fundamentalist Mormon church, the FLDS, which was ran by Warren Jeffs before he was sent to jail on account of a lot of things: rape, sexual assault, pedophilia. So this documentary, this is a nominee. This documentary did a whole deep dive into the FLDS. I knew a few things just given my fascination with cults, and this was one of the cults I read about growing up. And I knew about Warren Jeffs being in jail and why he was in jail. I just didn't know the extent of it. It's way more disgusting than I was prepared for. And I feel like this documentary did a good job explaining what the FLDS is and like the psychology behind it and how a lot of people are affected by it and why they fall for something like this, or if they're born into it, why they're stuck there. And I did like that they brought in ex-members of the church because it gave like a new perspective, and it also gives hope in a sense that like you're in something this tight knitted, and yet you could still there's still a possibility that you can escape and live a much better life. They also brought in a lot of receipts. It's a very disturbing documentary. But if you want to learn more about the FLDS and Warren Jeffs and what he did, I do highly recommend this. And there is no reason for the theme song of this documentary to be as much of a banger as it is. That being said, please be aware it does talk about a lot of tough topics. For example, like I said in the beginning of the video, sexual assault, rape, and pedophilia. The last episode I did have a visceral reaction because they do play an audio recording of one of Warren Jeffs' rituals, which is basically raping a 12-year-old while many of his wives, because the dude had like 85 wives, while many of his wives sit around and watch. That one I couldn't believe they actually played an audio recording of, but I had a visceral reaction to that. And typically I don't need trigger warnings for things, so please be mindful. As much as I do recommend this documentary if you want to learn more about this church, just be mindful of what you're getting into. Then I watched Challenger: The Final Flight. This is a documentary about the Challenger. This was another very fascinating documentary. Do I want to put it in the high end of background noise? No, I'm actually going to put it in nominees. So I went into this obviously knowing what the Challenger is. I'm well aware about the space shuttle that exploded in the sky with the teacher. However, prior to watching this, I always thought that it was just like a very, very unfortunate accident. It wasn't until I watched this that I learned that, like, well, yes it was. Yes, it is a very sad accident, but a lot of people in NASA knew it was going to happen, and yet they still okayed the flight. So that whole thing is what this documentary explores. So this documentary does a deep dive into the tragic accident that it was, and we get to see people from the company that made the space shuttle itself. We get to hear from people who worked at NASA. We get to hear from the guy who okayed the flight despite knowing what was going to happen. This documentary ended up being a lot sadder than I thought it would be going into this. They interviewed a daughter of someone who worked at the company making the space shuttle, and he was the guy who was like, this is going to happen and we need to fix it, but was ignored. And she was talking about how like he felt guilt until his dying day. And you know, you can't help but feel sorry for that. And there's a few people like from NASA where they don't regret their decision, which is kind of wild to me, but at the same time, just seeing the looks on their face, you know all these years later, to this day, they are still very haunted by what happened. So it's like they say one thing, but their facial expressions say the opposite. So you wonder what they're really thinking and how much of what they're saying is for appearances, or what they're saying is true. But you know, humans, were not black and white creatures, we're very morally gray. So if that has anything to do with their thought process. At the same time, this documentary was kind of wholesome. Like, it told the history of how a teacher was on this flight, so we got to hear about the competition all these teachers did across the world, the final 10 that were picked. They talked about the life of the teacher that was chosen. I cannot remember her name for the life of me, but we got to hear more about her life, so that then this documentary kind of became more personal. And we got to see like a little like where are they now sort of thing. So because the runner-up, she did eventually get to go to space, and I thought that was cute in a sense, and you know, you gotta wonder if she was shitting her pants the whole time. But in summary, what made this documentary so fascinating was just how it could be so sad but also wholesome at the same time. And just the fact that it kind of just turned my world upside down when it comes to this, because I went into this thinking the Challenger incident was one thing, but it was another thing entirely. So then, the next documentary, I only got 2 more to talk about. The next documentary is called Sins of Our Mother, and it's about a woman who joins a Mormon cult, and 2 of her kids go missing, and it is believed that she killed them along with her new husband. As in, her husband helped her, not that he died too. This is a very, very recent case, as in the police and judges finally concluded this like earlier this year. I think like a month after I watched this is when we got to hear what the court had to say. I'm gonna put this in background noise only because like it like the presentation of it all like is kind of forgettable. From what I do remember, I remember being deeply disturbed and just confused on why she would marry a man like that. And just some of the things these people believed and why they would kill people. I'm like, how can anyone hear that and take it seriously? It was like, from what I remember, it was just very mind-boggling what I was listening to. So then the last documentary I watched was The Devil Next Door. This is about a case that happened in the 80s where a man who moved from the Ukraine to the US was arrested on the belief that he is Ivan the Terrible. Ivan the Terrible was a Nazi at the Sobibor concentration camp, actually extermination camp. I went into this knowing the name Ivan the Terrible, but not in the sense of World War II, because I guess there's two Ivan the Terribles, one from like way back in the day, like 1500s, because I was just looking it up, and then the World War II guy. I had no idea this case even existed until I read the synopsis for this documentary. So I watched this kind of like a murder mystery because that's how it was set up. In the beginning, you don't really know if the guy they arrested did or didn't do anything. So throughout the whole documentary, you hear from both sides and you have to basically figure out for yourself who he was. And I actually really enjoyed this documentary. I'm gonna actually give this an Emmy. I love this documentary, not just because I love anything about World War II and just learning as much as I can, but I really like the presentation of this documentary. They interviewed a lot of people who believed he was Ivan the Terrible, but then they also interviewed a lot of people who didn't think he was. And then we got to see a lot of things from the trial and how some things didn't really make sense, like people went back on their words. We got to hear from Holocaust survivors that recognized him, and sometimes that wasn't the case. Like they said they recognized him, but then there was evidence that were like there was no way you could. So just the way it was set up, I myself didn't know what to believe. So I like that this documentary kind of forces you to draw your own conclusions. Like me personally, I don't know if he was Ivan the Terrible. I don't know if I can necessarily agree with that, but I do think he was involved with Sobibor. And it was also just so gripping. Unlike the other documentaries I watched, I was able to watch, you know, like an episode here and there and then set it aside. This one I binged. I could not put it down. So this one I do highly, highly recommend. So because I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, I did have to rewatch The Legend of Korra, which is the sequel series, except in this series, the Avatar is from the Water Tribes. It was a very slow going rewatch. Like Avatar: The Last Airbender, I got done in 3 weeks, but for some reason, Legend of Korra took me from May up until like September. I'm actually, given everything else I watch, I'm going to give it a nominee. I'm not going to give it an Emmy. I also talked about the show for like 10 minutes in the 2020 video, so again, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but just like in summary, I really do love how it expands on the lore. The animation's stunning. I think the soundtrack's better than the original series. But I will say during this rewatch, I was noticing more of the flaws, because I think during my initial watch, I was just so excited. Like, yes, I saw them, but just not as much. Like, it's just they're more glaringly obvious now during the rewatch. I will say, though, I am of the unpopular opinion that the idea of Season 2 is actually a really great idea, because a lot of people hate Season 2. But I think the idea of it is better than Season 4. Season 4 is just arguably better written. But that's it. That's my only hot take for the show. Like, yeah, it was slow going, but it was still a fun rewatch. If you truly want to hear more of my opinions, watch the 2020 video. I watched Mike Flanagan's The Midnight Club. This show is about a group of teenagers who all have a terminal disease. They're living in this house, and at midnight, they tell each other horror stories. And a lot of people didn't like this. A lot of people think it's one of Mike Flanagan's weakest shows. I didn't think it was bad. Like, I'm gonna give it background noise. I'm gonna put it there. I thought it was cute. I thought it was a really cute idea, and I really enjoyed how the horror stories the kids made up related to their real lives. In this show, there were some parts that were kind of boring, hence background noise. But this show has also made me cry. I sobbed my eyes out for a character death. And I'm actually really pissed that it didn't get a Season 2 because it ended on a cliffhanger. But then we have another Emmy, which is Attack on Titan Season 4 Part 3. One of the best shows. It's literally only 2 episodes that came out in 2023. Each episode's like an hour and a half long. But one of the best shows I watched. I'm gonna, actually, maybe because of recency bias, but I'm gonna put it before Avatar: The Last Airbender. I know. But let me tell you, these 2 episodes, because again, they're each like an hour and a half long, they're each like a feature-length film. I was just, what do I even say? First of all, let me tell you what it's about. Attack on Titan takes place in the world where the last of the humans on Earth are being eaten by these giant humanoid titans. So they live within these 3 walls, and our main character, Eren Yeager, he joins the scout regiment so that he can leave the walls and find out the secret to these titans. And let me tell you, at no point in this show, once you get to episode 5, at no point in this show will you have any idea where it is going. Episode, girl. Final season part 3 took me on an emotional roller coaster. I was sad. I cried multiple times. I'm always crying, let's be serious. But I was angry at one point. I was happy crying sometimes, but there was another point where I was just so angry, and I want to tell you guys why, but I don't want to spoil this show. You absolutely don't want spoilers for this show, because I want you to be caught off guard like I was. But I'm just gonna say the one scene, it's called the rumbling. I won't say what that is, but the rumbling scene, I have never felt such a sense of hopelessness and despair like I did watching that scene for the first time. And the voice acting is stupendous, and honestly I really liked the conclusion to Attack on Titan. I know when it first dropped for the manga, a lot of people were angry, so then it dropped 2 years ago. So for the past 2 years, manga readers have been trying to convince anime onlys, oh, you're gonna hate it, oh, lower your expectations, oh, we warned you. I guess I saw one anime only on Twitter not liking it. He said the ending was ass, and people were like, we tried to warn you. But it was just so fascinating watching all these anime onlys actually understand what was going on and appreciate the ending for what it was. Now some of those manga readers are pissed off, but whatever. You can't a series this grandiose and big, you can't please everyone. The series is so big that streaming services were crashing. But I personally really liked the ending. There were a few things here and there I think they can improve on, but I didn't dislike it at all. I think everything that had to happen happened, and I've really grown to love Eren and Mikasa's dynamic, just everyone's dynamic. And again, just like with Avatar: The Last Airbender, everyone in this show is my child. They're all my children. Eren Smith is my husband, but everyone else is my children. I feel like everyone got the conclusion they deserved. I feel like Eren's goals were met, because I don't think his goals were as grandiose as some people make them out to be. He had a very simple goal. The goals were met. And I really liked what the very last 2 minutes of the last episode had to say. Literally not even halfway through season 1 of Attack on Titan, I figured the show, bless you, I figured the show wasn't going to have a happy ending. Whoa, you were so loud. My guess was that the ending would be bittersweet. All I wanted was to be content, and that's what I got. I'm content with what it is. I really do like with what the author was going for, and I think the anime portrayed that wonderfully. I will say though, Attack on Titan has the best depictions of raw human emotions in all of fiction, and whether that's anime, Western cartoons, Western shows, Hollywood movies, Japanese movies, books, what have you. Just the best example of raw human emotions, and I love the show to death. I can rant about it all day. If you just want to be emotional and see an intricately woven story, Attack on Titan is the story for you. 5 out of 5. I can't believe the journey is over. Watching that final scene fade to black and the words "the end" popping up on the screen was actually bone chilling. I had goosebumps. I've been looking forward to a new season for this show for the past 3 years, and it's over. And I have no regrets watching it. I'm rambling now. Please watch this show. Okay, next is another Mike Flanagan show, and that is The Fall of the House of Usher, and this is about the Usher family. Roderick Usher has 6 kids, and all of them are dropping like flies. So this story, not only is it an adaptation of The House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe, but it also brings in things from other Edgar Allan Poe stories, such as The Mask of the Red Death, The Pit and the Pendulum, The Raven, and just a few more. Each child is based on an Edgar Allan Poe story, so it's kind of like an Edgar Allan Poe multiverse, which is it's an interesting idea. However, I was kind of bored out of my mind with the show, which is shocking because I like Mike Flanagan's stuff, but this one, is it background noise or is it something that exists? I'm not even grabbing the thing. ooh, I'm like looking at this poster though. That poster eats. But I'm gonna put it in something that exists, which is sad. Because again, it's Mike Flanagan, but I don't know. I really like the acting's pretty great in this show, and I liked the different aspects of Edgar Allan Poe and how each child was based on a character. And I like that they were like modern versions of the story as well, and every actor did a great job. I love the monologues they had. I love the interaction between the characters. Like, nobody in the show was a good person, and usually I eat that up. But I don't know what it was about this one. I had a very hard time with it. I was bored, and that's all I gotta say about it. So then next was Neon Genesis Evangelion, which is a classic anime show, and this is about a world that's it's basically post-apocalyptic because all the humans were all dying because of these angel things, and the Eva machines have to kill them off. And it's a classic, and it's religious based. There's a lot of Christian imagery. I actually don't love this show as much as people seem to. To me, it's something that exists on the high end of it. I did, because I was enjoying it more than like Fall House of Usher. But like, this show's mostly a victim of a genre I'm not a huge fan of. Like, as much as I love Star Wars, because I watched a lot of Star Wars content, sci-fi usually isn't my go-to, and I would argue that's what this show mostly is. I really like the religious imagery, but I did have a hard time with some of the fan service in it, and then I had a hard time with the character Rey when that whole thing was revealed. It kind of took me out of the story. And I absolutely did not like the last 2 episodes, which I know I was warned about. I was literally warned about. I was warned about how bad they are, and that's why the movie was made, to make a proper conclusion. I have seen the end of Evangelion. I talk about it in the tearing movie video. But strictly on the TV show, I was just taken out of it. So I'm really disappointed I didn't love this as much as people seem to, because it is a classic, but it is what it is. We have another Emmy coming up. We have Spy X Family Season 2. This was one of my faves of the year. I'm gonna put it, come on, actually, let's put it here. So Spy X Family is about a spy named Twilight who needs to create a fake family. So he adopts a little girl named Anya, and him and Yor get married. But Twilight, or Lloyd, his family name, he doesn't know that Yor is an assassin. Yor doesn't know that Lloyd is a spy. Neither of them know that Anya is a telepath. Anya, being a telepath, knows everything about them. But because she's only like 4 or 5 years old, she doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. And it's just utter chaos. It gives rom-com vibes, which is, it's actually like a miracle I like this show, because I'm not a huge fan of rom-coms. I'm not a huge fan of slice of life. And this show is a slice of life show with rom-com vibes and some shonen elements here and there. And yet I absolutely adore this show. It has me giggling and kicking my feet in the air. Not just Lloyd and Yor and their whole dynamic, because like, yeah, I ship them like most of the fandom does, but just the whole dynamic in general, like Anya's shenanigans, and then like, I just love that despite the fact they're a fake family, they're one of the most realistic families I've ever seen in anime. But it just feels so realistic, and you can see the love is there, especially in the 2nd season, just watching these characters grow to realize that they actually do care about one another. Because so Lloyd and Yor got married for appearances, Lloyd because of his mission, and then Yor because just given the time period and how old she is, she didn't want to be suspected of being a spy. But there's a whole scene where she's like learning that she actually does love these people as a family, and she cares about them. And I just think it's so sweet. And specifically about this season was really fun because Yor is my favorite character, and this season there was an arc just for her, and we got to see more of her assassin abilities because she's absolutely insane. And this season was sweet and wholesome, and admittedly I cried when it was over, which is so funny because I cried and I'm like texting my friend, I'm like, I miss them already, as if they're not real people, and yet I miss them. A grand old time, and I can't wait to start reading the manga this year. The next show I watched was Zama 100 Bucket List of the Dead. This is about a zombie apocalypse, but our main character Akira is actually happy that it's happening. This show's okay. It's like not a nominee, but like it's background noise, but like, yeah, it's background noise. I'm gonna put it here. It's a very fun show. I love our main character Akira. So he is just so burnt out from his job, so that when the zombie apocalypse happens and he realizes he doesn't need to go to work anymore, he creates a bucket list of things to do. He wants to get to 100 things and do all these 100 things before he's inevitably turned into a zombie. And there's a found family, shenanigans ensue, and it's really fun. It's just zombie apocalypse, like zombies in general aren't really my thing, so I think that's kind of what tainted my view a little bit. Some of the gags did get old. Like one of the gags is his friend Kencho constantly taking off his clothes. That got old, like he does it every episode, and it got old after the second episode. But I do like the colors too. Like the blood isn't just red; it's a rainbow of colors. Sometimes it's green, yellow, purple, whatever, which I feel like really enhances like just how happy Akira is and how he's trying to see the bright side of things given this terrible, terrible world. And I do think the concept's cool. Like usually in zombie apocalypse shit, like yeah, our main characters are terrified, but in this one he's like genuinely, he's happy it's happening, and I think that's hilarious. But like I said, it's just okay if it doesn't get a season 2. Like I don't care, like whatever. And then the last show I completed in 2023 was Star Wars The Clone Wars, a 2D micro series. So this takes place between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. And this was a fun series. I don't really have much to say about this other than it is background noise. I'll put it there, I guess. But it's basically just different battles throughout the Clone Wars. And we do get to see new characters, and that some of them we do actually get to see in the other Clone Wars series that is much more popular, the one that was on Cartoon Network. Some of it is a bit forgetful, but I do like the animation style. I thought that was really cool and something I wish Star Wars would work with more. But however, it was just a fun time. And like I said, it's the last show I completed because I did start watching Star Wars The Clone Wars, the 3D series in 2023. It's just I only watched like 5 episodes, which is why I'm not tier ranking it. But I finished season 3 today as of filming this video. And it's great. It is some of the best Star Wars content out there. And here we are. That's everything I watched in 2023. Here are my final rankings. My throat is dry as hell because I was just trying to get through this video and I didn't drink any water. I also didn't write a script for this video, so hopefully this turns out well and comprehensive. But let me know down below what TV shows you guys watched last year. If you watched any of these shows, what your opinions are on them, or if there's a show you really want me to watch. Right now the plan for 2023 is to finish the Clone Wars, and I also want to watch I Am Not Okay With This. Avatar The Last Airbender, the live action series is on my list, and Solo Leveling. That's all I have so far, but if there's anything I must watch, let me know, especially documentaries. I'm always here for a good documentary. But if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe, y'all know the drill. Without further ado, I'm gonna peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao tutti.